Well,
The
whoops.
left ultimately is against Western civilization. I think it's pretty clear. They want to
Yeah.
eliminate Western civilization.
Even well, and the right wing would like to eliminate it, I think, in some ways, and reinstitute their version of what they think civilization should be.
The right is misguided in the United States. I don't really even think there is a right in the United States.
Well, luckily, it seems to be shrinking.
What there is?
Well, what's left of the right wing is just shrinking,
I don't think
and
it's
the
a
ones
true
that are
right.
left want to just want to bomb and murder people and melt people, you know.
Yeah.
And then
You're talking about the neocons and these people.
yeah, the neoconservatives.
But this is ultimately a
left
left-wing view that they have of the world.
Yeah, actually, you could actually say,
Yeah.
well, you know, Rand talked about this. I'm trying to remember. It was a speech she did in the late 60s. And Ayn Rand talked about this, and she said the problem with the two parties is this, and I wholeheartedly agree with her,
Yeah.
is you've got the left who calls themselves liberals, who are really statist.
Yeah.
And you've got the right wing who is conservatives. And it would have been fine if those two terms would have just switched places. The conservative and liberal would have just flip-flopped. That's not what happened. What happened is the liberals became statist, which really is in 19th century classical liberalism of and pertaining to freedom.
Right.
They were people like Jefferson who did not believe in government intervention.
Right. Bastiat, Molinari.
And the right wing, they became conservatives, but they were the old school 19th century conservatives, which means to conserve the state. So now you have a conservative party wishing to conserve the state and a leftist statist party. So basically the country was left with two choices, the statist on the left and the statist on the right. And that's what we have today.
But I think when they used the term conservative, they were talking about a particular society, their cultural values.
Yeah, and they're definitely referring to a lot of values. But
Yeah.
the question they evade and they'll never answer is values according to who and how. I mean, how do you institute a society like that? Most of them are completely comfortable with just using force.
Well, but, you know, even the classical liberals of the 1800s, the more radical ones in France, like Molinari and Bastiat, these were conservative men. They were against the state doing almost anything. Like, even Bastiat wanted to disband the French army, you know. They were against the state.
Actually, I think it's kind of a good idea. I'd like to disband our army. I mean, we got enough bombs to blow
not
up the world
my
25
army.
times.
I don't have an army, man. But
well, it's the army me and you pay for. So whether it's our army or not, we're
which one is that?
writing
Is
the
that
check.
the Israeli army or the Saudi Arabian army? Or,
if you say that, you're going to get in real trouble. Even though Netanyahu just said, hey, listen, get out of our country, we can defend ourselves. But if you say that, they're going to, you know, of course, people watching will bash you for it. So.
Well, it could also be like the South Sudanese army. It could be the Saudi Arabian army.
It could be the German army. I mean, we pay for a defense of a lot of countries.
Yeah.
And that bastard Ron Paul wants to stop paying for the defense of other countries. I mean, just craziness, right?
Terrible idea.
I mean, yeah, imagine that. We're in a recession. We're broke. We're bankrupt, and he wants to stop paying for other people's defense. I mean, sounds nuts, doesn't it? When up is down and down is up, and the guy who wants to actually cut the spending is not even considered for the conservative party.
And the liberals of the 1800s were not social liberals of today. They didn't have a disdain for Western civilization, for example. They didn't hate men and want to artificially elevate this group over this group and suppress this group, and like your leftists do today.
The leftists are probably more responsible for that, but you know the right wing's bought into a lot of that stuff.
A lot of it, no doubt.
I mean, because they won't even just speak out against it. They have to basically give homage to it. They have to worship it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's like, for example, I got in a debate with a friend of mine.
Yeah.
She is very much a big supporter of Martin Luther King Jr., and I said, well, here's the problem I have with that. You can like him or dislike him. Let's just put that aside for a second.
Yeah.
But if you don't worship at the altar of MLK, you're a racist and a bigot and a homophobe. And I have a huge problem with that. Because in this country, we should be able to have debates, lively debates, and where we can disagree with people. Yeah. We don't have to worship at the altar of anyone. Right. And we can have legitimate intellectual disagreements without demagoguing. And the problem we've got now is everybody demagogues. They call you a racist, a bigot, and a homophobe, and then the argument's over. Most people, I have to say, are dumb enough. They hear those arguments and they go, oh, wow, that's as high of an intellectual argument as you get out of most people.
Or you hear people like Limbaugh, for example. And I know I use Limbaugh as an example, but he's like an example on the right of everything I'm against. But that's why. But he'll argue like...
And he's the one who got me interested in politics. I hate to say that.
The real racists are the leftists, you know? I mean, he takes the leftist tactic, the leftist language, the leftist values, and tries to argue against the left with that. I mean,
that's more of a, I think, a political tactic on the right.
That's a losing strategy, though.
Well, yeah, well, they don't stand for anything.
Right. Well, that's
they're basically they're against whatever the leftist party does.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not even really for capitalism.
Right.
They only talk up free markets, and they never give any specifics because they don't believe in real free markets.
That's true. That's true.
They believe in a semi-free market, and they only use that as a way to bludgeon the left. I mean, it's a stick to beat them with. And the left does the same thing. They see that you know, Obama in a lot of his speeches has taken right-wing rhetoric and absorbed it and used it and tried to evade the real issues. And you see this stuff all the time. This is what's going on in our political world. That's why you can't ever understand what any of them are saying. Because it's on purpose. They don't want you to. They don't want to be pigeonholed. They want to be able to appeal to the right and be able to appeal to the left. And they want to be able to do that in a very calm, cool, clean way that where the masses just absorb it and accept it. And that's what we're looking at.
Ignorant, unwashed masses. You want another beer?
Yes.